Hello, everyone, and welcome to our meeting about the Colter Street project. This is a project that extends from 15th Avenue to 20th Street, and we have a panel of experts that we'll introduce in a moment to share with you some details about the early design phase of this project. And I emphasize early design phase because construction is a ways off. Finalizing the design is a little ways off as well. As with all of our meetings, we offer this meeting with a Spanish language listen line, and that line and our Spanish language interpreter will introduce it. His name is Albert Granillo. Albert, please go ahead.
Si usted desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor marque el 602-534-1000 y luego introduzca el número de la reunión, el 57271 y el símbolo de número. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Albert. We do record this meeting, which is a feature that WebEx offers, as opposed to an in-person meeting where we wouldn't necessarily have a recording. The recording should be posted on the project website in about 72 hours, if not sooner. The screen you see right now will give you a little guide for how to use the WebEx interface. On the long arrow, the diagonal arrow points to the chat box. That will open up chat and Q&A. Tonight, we have 43 people who have signed up with a request to speak, and we have a bunch of submitted questions. We also have a survey that we will be launching that'll have an open-ended opportunity to insert a question. We will try to get to as many questions as we can. Please, comments for the project team, please use the chat box. The project team will review all of that. Q&A, again, we'll be working our way through submitted questions and people who signed up to speak as our top priority today. And with that, I'd like the panelists to introduce themselves in the order their names appear. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my apologies. I thought our city engineer was up first, so glad to be here. My second public meeting. Joe Brown, the new street transportation director, but I'll turn it over to our city engineer, Eric Froberg, to introduce the team.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Froberg. I am the city engineer here with the city of Phoenix. Ruben.
Hello, my name is Ruben Lawley. I'm the Deputy Director for Street Transportation Department, Design and Construction Management, the division that implements projects. Hello. I'll turn over to Bruce.
I'm Bruce Littleton. I'm the Traffic Engineering Supervisor. I essentially have everything on the project that deals with the electrical side, any of the hawks or the electronic devices. I'm the Traffic Engineering Supervisor over signals, and I'll pass it on to Rod Penniman.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Rod Penniman. I'm Olson's project manager. Olson is the consultant designing this project today.
Hello, my name is Ashley Couch, and I'm the engineering manager in the design section of Street Transportation Department. So our section is responsible for the engineering design of this project. Nice to be with you this evening. Thank you for your attendance.
Hello, my name is Jeff Hertzoft. I'm the project manager for this project, the Colter Street project, and I am with the DCM Street Transportation Department.
And with that, we'll have Eric Froberg kick us off, and then he'll turn it over to the project team.
All right. Thank you, Heather, and thank you, team, for being here today. And thank you all for taking some time out of your evening to share your thoughts and opinions with us on this important project. In 2020 and 2021, the Street Transportation Department worked with the community on a conceptual, the pre-design and some planning phase to look at options to improve connectivity and safety for residents who want to move east and west through Phoenix. Specifically, Phoenix sought to find a safe way for you and your neighbors to access destinations like churches, parks, retail stores, and restaurants in the area without having to walk or ride bicycles on Camelback, Missouri, or Bethany Home. As you are all aware, these streets have many more businesses, commercial and office parked activity with lots of turning movements, and most of those roadways are about 70%, and that's where 70% of the cars, bikes, and pedestrian injuries typically occur. I would ask for you to think about safety and mobility of pedestrians and bicycles beyond just your street or the neighborhood, and consider how interconnections with other routes could be helpful. We know some community members have concerns about cut-through traffic, and we have planned speed and traffic mitigation features to discourage that. This project aims to give people a practical and safe way to move through the area without getting hurt. We are in the early design stage at about 30%, which Heather mentioned, which makes this the ideal time to present the proposal and get input from the community. Thank you again for all being here today and being engaged in your community and with this project. So with that, I'll turn it over to the design team.
Thanks, Eric. Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Jeff Hertzoft. I am the project manager for this project, the Colter Street Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvement Project. I want to thank you all for attending tonight's 30% design meeting. For tonight, I will review tonight's meeting agenda, the project overview. From there, I will confer to our design consultant to review the 30% design. For tonight, we will start with the project overview, project goals, project limits, project improvements, and finally the project schedule. The goal of this project is to improve the safety and comfort for all users of the roadway. Planning and conceptual design was started in 2020 with public outreach efforts from the public meeting number 1 in October 2020, public meeting number 2, 2021. Planning conceptual design was completed in 2021. The conceptual design was performed by another consultant and was strictly for conceptual design basis only. Final design process was started in spring of 2023, and currently the design is at 30% complete, as Mr. Froberg had mentioned. The project website for future updates is www.Phoenix.gov. /streets/Colter Street project, Colter Street Ped Bike. From here, I would like to introduce Rod Penniman. He's with Olson Associates. Olson is a national recognized engineering and design firm contracted with the City of Phoenix. Olson has an extensive experience with this type of project, and we are happy to have them on board. Rod?
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to start by talking about the goals for the project. The goals for the project include improving safety and comfort and connectivity for bicyclists and pedestrians. Another goal will be to address the Americans with Disability Act compliance issues by improving existing curb ramps and driveways, by constructing new sidewalk to fill in the sidewalk gaps to provide a continuous sidewalk system. Anytime that the city does a street improvement project, by law, the city is required to bring the city facilities, such as the sidewalks and curb ramps, to current standards to provide accessible access for all users. Another goal is to enhance traffic function and safety for pedestrians and bicyclists by incorporating mini traffic circles, shared lane markings, also known as sharrows, and high-intensity activated crosswalk signals, also known as hawk signals. We heard from the public that crossing some of the north-south streets are a concern for pedestrian and bicyclists. So hawk signals will be implemented at 15th Avenue and 7th Avenue. The existing hawk signal at Central Avenue will be upgraded to a bike hawk. A toucan signal is proposed for 7th Street, and flashing circular beacons are proposed at 12th Street. All of these will provide a safer passage across the north-south streets. The final goal that we have here is to minimize the impact to the public right-of-way by using the city right-of-way to construct the improvements. As mentioned previously, the project limits are from 15th Avenue to 20th Street. The project was originally broken into two phases, Phase 1, 15th Avenue to 7th Street, and Phase 2, 7th Street to 20th Street. Due to available construction funding for Phase 1 only. However, the design has been moved forward for the entire stretch from 15th Avenue to 20th Street. Both Phase 1 and Phase 2 are being designed together in hopes that construction funding for Phase 2 will be available once the design is complete. As I move forward in the presentation, I'll be talking about 6 different sections of Colter Street. We broke the project down into 6 sections for the purpose of the presentation. The first section will be from 15th Avenue to 7th Avenue. The second section I'll talk about is from 7th Avenue to Central Avenue. The third section will be from Central Avenue to 7th Street. The fourth section will be from 7th Street to 12th Street. The fifth section will be from 12th Street to 16th Street. And finally, the sixth section that I'll be speaking about is from 16th Street to 20th Street. When we started with this project, we understand that, and we had received a lot of comments from the public. And these comments have helped shape the design for the project, the improvements that we're proposing today. The improvements shown on the screen in blue text highlight the recommendations from the public from the 2 past prior public engagements that took place during the conceptual and planning phases of the project. The first section I'm going to talk about is the section of Colter Street from 15th Avenue to 7th Street. On your screen, you'll see an overview of an aerial map that identifies some of the improvements along this section. In this particular section, we are proposing a bike hawk signal at 15th Avenue. We're proposing to close the frontage road at 15th Avenue. We're proposing to open the frontage road median just south of Colter Street for access to the frontage road, being that we're planning to close the frontage road at 15th Avenue. We're proposing concrete sidewalks for both sides of Colter Street from 15th Avenue to 13th Avenue. We're going to improve curb ramps and driveways in the areas where new sidewalks will be placed. We're also looking at implementing mini traffic circles at the intersection of 13th Avenue and 11th Avenue. Also along this section, we're going to be introducing shared lane markings, also known as sharrows. And also along this segment at 7th Avenue, currently there's a bike hawk being constructed, which is not part of this project, but I just wanted to point out that is currently under construction at 7th Avenue. So I want to just talk a little bit about the sharrows and the hawk signals that I just mentioned. On your screen, on this particular slide, you'll see that we've got an example of sharrows at Oak Street and 15th Street. The sharrows are road markings that will remind motorists and bicyclists that they must share the lane. Sharrows will be implemented along Colter Street for most of this project's length. On the right photo, you'll see a hawk signal. This is the existing signal at Central Avenue and Colter Street. A hawk signal stays dark until it's activated by a pedestrian or a bicyclist. The signal will be activated to alert drivers that someone intends to cross the street. If the signal is not activated by a pedestrian or a bicyclist, it is not in use. In this slide, we'd like to present a before and after photo of what the frontage road at 15th Avenue when it's closed would look like. On the left slide is a before picture, existing conditions. On the right is an after photo. This is a rendering that shows how the frontage road at 15th Avenue would be closed off with new ADA ramps. The hawk signal that's proposed at 15th Avenue is just out of the photo to the right. The crossing for the hawk is shown in the photo. 15th Avenue frontage road is being closed to provide a safe crossing for pedestrian and bicyclists. That's why this is being proposed to be closed. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Section 2. Section 2 is from 7th Avenue to Central Avenue. The improvements in this section include a mini traffic circle at 3rd Avenue. And then along the stretch between 3rd Avenue to Central, we're proposing to narrow the asphalt roadway to 20 feet. We're proposing to add 2-foot concrete ribbon flush curb with a textural treatment on both sides of Colter Street within the existing pavement width. We're proposing to put a concrete sidewalk on the south side of Colter Street. And we're planning to improve the curb ramps and driveways to meet ADA requirements. Again, as mentioned previously, the shared lane markings will be put through this section from 7th Avenue to Central Street. I'd like to point out, having walked the project a number of times, we understand there are existing flood irrigation berms located within the city right-of-way that will conflict with the new sidewalk. The city will absorb the cost to reestablish flood irrigation berms behind the new sidewalk as part of the project, so flood irrigation can continue as it is today. In addition, landscape and private fences that conflict with the proposed sidewalk will also be reestablished behind the sidewalk and will be included in the project cost. In this section of roadway, I just would like to point out that we are still evaluating the placement of sidewalk at the south side of Colter Street approaching Central. We're still evaluating that section, that short section there on the south side approaching Central. On this slide, we're showing a before and after photo of Colter Street from 3rd Avenue looking towards Central. The picture on the left is an existing picture that we took, and on the picture on the right is a rendering that what the roadway would look like with adjacent ribbon curb to the pavement, inside the pavement area, and a sidewalk, 4-foot sidewalk on the south side. The 2-foot ribbon curb is proposed at each side of Colter Street. The ribbon curb will be placed inside the edges of the existing asphalt pavement to minimize disturbance beyond the pavement edge. The ribbon curb and concrete sidewalk will be flush with the existing ground and asphalt pavement surfaces as shown in the photo, therefore maintaining existing drainage patterns. Vertical curbs are not proposed in this section. We are recommending that the ribbon curb have a textural surface that will contrast with the asphalt pavement. The ribbon curb will stabilize the pavement edge as well as act as a buffer area to separate pedestrians walking along the sidewalk from motorists. The 20-foot wide asphalt pavement will act as a traffic calming feature. It will help to encourage slower speeds through the area. Now I'll talk about the section from Central Avenue to 7th Street. And the proposed improvements in this section include upgrading the existing hawk signal to a bike hawk at Central Avenue. By upgrading this signal, we will be adding bike crosswalks and bike signals for bicyclists. This segment of road we're also proposing concrete sidewalk at both sides. We're proposing to improve curb ramps and driveways, again to meet ADA requirements where the new sidewalk is placed. We're introducing shared lane markings through this section of road. And at 7th Street, we are proposing a toucan signal. So what is a toucan signal? In this slide here, we're showing a picture of an existing toucan signal, which is down in the Tucson area. On the left is a plan view of what the signal looks like at the intersection, and on the right is a view looking down the street at what the signal would look like. The toucan signal is a system that's designed to provide safe crossing for both pedestrians and bicyclists. A toucan can be activated only by bicyclists or by pedestrians. Both use a push button to activate the signal. Bicyclists respond to an innovative bicycle adjacent crosswalk. The system uses a standard signal for motorists. So this is an example of a toucan signal that is proposed at 7th Street. Now I'm going to talk about the section between Central Avenue and 7th Street. In this photo, on this slide, we have a before photo and an after photo rendered of what this section of Colter Street would look like looking from Central towards 7th Street. In this section, concrete sidewalk is proposed adjacent to the existing roll curb at both sides of the street. And bicyclists will share the road with motorists through this section as depicted by a Sharrow on the after photo. As previously mentioned, we understand there are existing flood irrigation berms located within the city right-of-way through this section that will conflict with the sidewalk. The city will absorb the cost to reestablish the flood irrigation berms behind the new sidewalk as part of the project, so the flood irrigation, again, can continue as it is today. In addition, landscaping and private fences that conflict with proposed sidewalk will also be reestablished behind the sidewalk and will be included in the project cost. Section 4 is from 7th Street to 12th Street. An overview of the improvements in this section include mini traffic circles at 8th Place and 10th Street, concrete sidewalk at both sides of Colter Street from 9th Street to 12th Street. We'll be improving curb ramps and driveways to meet ADA requirements in areas where new sidewalk will be placed. And again, shared lane markings where the bicyclists and the motorists will share the lane will be through this section. On this slide, we're showing a before and after photo at the 10th Street intersection with Colter. In this particular location, we are proposing a mini traffic circle, which is shown on the right, in the photo on the right. Mini traffic circles, not to be confused with roundabouts, are typically constructed in neighborhoods on local streets with little traffic for the purpose of traffic calming. Roundabouts are usually larger in diameter and can control traffic effectively on busier arterial streets. So in this case, we are proposing a mini roundabout. This is one of the locations that we're proposing, and the photo on the right shows what it could look like when it's implemented. Section 5. This is between 12th Street and 16th Street. The improvements in this section include flashing circular beacons at 12th Street, shared lane markings from 12th Street to 14th Street. On-street bike lanes will be implemented from 14th Street to 16th Street in this section. We're proposing concrete sidewalk on the south side between 13th Street and 16th Street. And again, we'll be improving curb ramps and driveways to meet ADA requirements. In this section at 16th Street, we'll be modifying the traffic signal to meet current city and ADA requirements. In this particular case, the signal will be upgraded with pedestrian signals and push buttons, and we'll be improving the curb ramps for accessibility to the pedestrian signals. This slide shows a before and after photos of flashing beacon, where a flashing beacon would be placed at 12th Street. The left photo is the before, the right photo is the after, and it shows crosswalks and the flashing circular beacon being placed at 12th Street and Colter. This is what it could look like through this rendering. Now I'll talk about our sixth section, which is from 16th Street to 20th Street. In this particular section, we'll be implementing a 12-foot shared use path on the north side of Colter Street from 16th Street to SR 51, and a 10-foot shared use path on the north side of the SR 51 bridge. I'd like to note that the City of Phoenix has been coordinated with ADOT to define geometric improvements to the SR 51 off-ramp connection to Colter Street and the SR 51 bridge crossing to meet ADA requirements and to enhance the safety for both pedestrians and cyclists through this area. We're also proposing a 10-foot shared use path on the east side of 17th Place from Colter Street to Medlock Drive. Again, we'll be improving curb ramps and driveways through this section. We're proposing a mini traffic circle at 18th Place. We're proposing shared lane markings from 18th Place ending west of 20th Street. And we're proposing concrete sidewalk on the north side of Colter Street between 18th Place ending just west of 20th Street. I would like to point out that we are still in the process of evaluating the placement of sidewalk along the north side of Colter Street between 18th Street to the east. So there's a small section that we're still evaluating in that area for sidewalk. On this slide, we're showing a before and after picture across the SR 51 bridge. The left picture shows an existing condition. The right photo shows what the crosswalk could look like on the north side of the bridge. So this is a rendering of what the crosswalk and the 88 ramps would look like across the SR 51 bridge. This next photo, this next slide shows a before and after photo along 17th Place, the east side of 17th Place. The left photo is the before, the right photo is the after. The right photo shows the multi-use path being placed along the side of 17th Place. So we're showing that it would be along the edge of the road, off the edge of the road. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the schedule. The next public meeting for this project would happen sometime in the spring of 2024 after we've finished our 60% design level plans. Design completion is anticipated to be done sometime in the summer of 2024. The segment of Colter Street from 15th Avenue to 7th Street, the construction is anticipated to be procured in the fall of 2024, with construction anticipated beginning sometime in the spring of 2025. The segment of Colter Street from 7th Street to 20th Street is currently to be determined of when that construction would be started. So with that ends my presentation. We'll open it up for questions.
Thanks, Rod. I really appreciate all your efforts and your fine exchange of what we propose. Before we do start the question portion, I would like to reiterate Mr. Froberg's comment. We are still at 30% on the design and still have time to make necessary changes. It's important to note that the city's primary goal is to minimize the impact of existing conditions. Your feedback is very much appreciated and essential for a successful project. And to that, I'll hand it off to you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff and Rod. We have a number of people who have signed up to speak, and we also have some submitted questions, and I'll be taking those roughly in the order that they came in. We'll try to get to all of them. We realized this was a half-an-hour presentation, so we'll get rolling here, and I'm going to have some assistance from my colleague, Greg, who's looking for the people who are up next. First, I'd like to welcome Ellen K. Ellen, if you are out there, please, Greg will unmute you and you can go ahead with your question. I will ask everybody to keep your questions as tight as you possibly can, preferably to about a minute so that our team has a chance to answer you, and then we can get through as many people as possible.
And Heather, I'm not able to unmute Ellen. I don't know if you can help me
All
with
right.
that. It's not allowing me to do that.
All right, let's see here. Bear with me. Let's see. Let me try this. Ellen, you should be unmuted now. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I live in what you consider your section 6. I have for over 25 years. And Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, very good. I have some very definite safety concerns regarding Colter between 18th Street and 20th Street. The drawings that the information photos you have on the website show sidewalks being added someplace, another place is not. Another big concern is the fact that Colter is varying widths between 18th Street and 20th Street. And that for one thing, the traffic circle that is proposed on 18th Place, that is a very small community intersection, and there is an irrigation standpipe right at the very corner, which I believe any large item like a fire truck or a school bus, which does go down there, or any other large vehicle would take out, having to go around a traffic circle, and you cannot see the standpipe on your photo. It's obscured by trees. There's another standpipe we are an irrigation water delivery district. There's another one on Colter just to the east of 18th Place, again, that is completely obscured by the tree. And then as you proceed east on Colter, it's in your photos there's a width of 35 feet, and then it goes down running along a property that actually faces 20th Street, but it's a good distance where it is 20 feet. And there is no room there for people to walk now. If there's a school bus there, no other vehicles can pass. And there is no sidewalk, and there is no place for a sidewalk there. So we also have the irrigation issues here, but the standpipe issues are large. And I know for a fact SRP is not aware of this, because I got a call. I'm a trustee of our water district, and I got a call today from SRP asking me what I knew, because some other people had called them. So there are some very serious concerns. We also have very little access in and out of our neighborhood. It is either 20th Street, Missouri, or excuse me, 20th Street and Colter, or 18th Street in Missouri. So there are great concerns about funneling other people in here, what it could do to us. If you know that it's a very busy intersection at 18th Street, Missouri, at times you sit through a light and you can't get out because there's traffic stuck on Missouri. So we do have.
Thank you. Let me see if the project team can address any of your concerns.
Okay.
We do have a project survey, and I would definitely encourage you to highlight a couple of those areas for us, and we can get back to more specific questions, but let's see if the project team can take any of this on for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen, for your question. I feel your concern. The intent of the traffic circle at 18th Place is just the project to make the whole intent of the project is to make Colter a safer street to travel. So, and the traffic circlers are one of the tools that we utilize to help facilitate that. As Rod had mentioned in his presentation, at this time the sidewalk is still under consideration, and so are the traffic circles. Like I said, this is just a tool that we're looking to utilize. We're still at 30%. We go through a 60%, then a 90%, and 100% review. So thank you for your concerns. It's very warranted, and we'll keep that in consideration, and it will be notated. Thank you.
Also regarding SRP, we, as part of all our projects, we do communicate with SRP at certain points in design. Typically at 30%, SRP does not comment on our project, on our plans. So I know that surely as part of the delivery process, SRP will be aware.
Thanks, Ruben. Next, I'd like to call on Deborah Kay. Deborah, I've unmuted you. You should be able to go ahead and speak now.
Speaking my question, the very earliest form of this plan indicated that the sound wall was going to be breached at Medlock. We were looking at the current plan. It looks like it's no longer considered being breached, for which we thank you, and the kids in the neighborhood thank you. But The other question, I just want to confirm that's the case, that the sound wall is no longer going to be breached. The other one is with the shared use, it's pretty much the same, the same concern as the other lady, that, you know, Colter is already a little tiny street, and do we know how many pedestrians and how many bike people are actually going to make use of that last section of the plan? And, you know, is that going to be any cause for concern from the neighbors to have lots and lots of pedestrians and bikes going down that little narrow Colter Street?
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate that we are definitely not getting into that sound wall. After much conversation with ADOT, it just doesn't seem feasible, and it just doesn't, it's not part of the plan. As far as the usefulness of the shared bike lane and pedestrian crosswalks there, and on your portions on the more narrow sections at the bridge and such, we're looking to the whole intent of this project, you know, is safety and connectivity, is to breach both Colter Streets east and west together. So as far as traffic studies or estimated forecasted traffic studies, I'm not aware of that, but I'm sure I can get with our planning team and get back with you on those dates, on those numbers, if we do have them. But I do appreciate your concern. Thank you so much.
Sorry, next I'd like to ask one of the submitted questions. Is there an option to terminate the last portion of this project, i.e. 16th to 20th Street, considering that the neighborhood did not favor this project in the conceptual stage?
I think the overall goal of this project will be defeated if we terminate it at a certain point. So that's why we look to minimize the impact to all the neighborhood, because, you know, ultimately it's to provide connectivity. So if it's prematurely terminated, then the connectivity would no longer be there. So this is something we can continue to evaluate, and the goal is to minimize impact, and that's how we are moving the project.
Thank you, Ruben. Next, I'd like to call on, I'm just going to take a guess that Tom is the person that signed up as Thomas H. Tom, I'm unmuting you in the hopes that you are that person. In the future, it really helps us if you sign up with it. If you log in with the name you signed up as, it helps us find you. Go ahead, Tom.
No, Tom.
Tom? We've already unmuted you. Please go ahead and speak close to the microphone for us. All right, that doesn't seem to be working. Tom, you're unmuted. One last try, please. All right, Tom's mic may not be working. Let me look for Nathan and see if Nathan is on here. We had people sign up to speak, and sometimes they're not on the line. It doesn't look like Nathan is here. Let me call on Jono, please. Jono, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Of Colter Street, Winter Square, I think probably our entire neighborhood supports your project goal of improving the safety and mobility of pedestrians and cyclists in a practical way. I know many of my fellow residents have a number of different questions. Your presentation suggested that this process will end in a solution that will either move or not impact our existing infrastructure, including the trees, landscaping, and irrigation. If you could explain this in much more specific detail, I think that's probably one of the top questions for many of us. For example, there are, palm trees that are 50+ years old that run, right through the proposed sidewalks. Are you simply going to go around those? How are you going to preserve the integrity of this historic neighborhood with your proposed solutions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thanks, Jonah. I appreciate your concern. Right now, the city is, the intent is to minimize the impact to the existing condition. What that means is we will work with our historical team and our sustainability team to make sure that the impact is minimal. At 30%, we are still reviewing some of the destinations of the sidewalks and the layout. We don't want to see the trees removed either. We don't want to see any kind of impacts that's going to affect our community. If the opportunity comes or has to be done, we have to relocate some trees, and the city will address that at that time. But prior, at 60%, we will review that with you and your community. But as I stated, it's the last resort. It's not something we want to do or proposing to do at this time. The intent is to make it safe, to make connectivity without disrupting your community or your streets or your trees or anything like that, because we enjoy it as well, and we don't want to see any kind of negative feedback or changes done to your team, to your streets. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, next I'd like to call on Anna S. Anna S., you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Jono just mentioned the trees. I am steward to 2 of the 6 palm trees that I think he was referring to. They're about 3.5 feet from the curb, and I am very much, and I think many of the neighbors are very much concerned about the removal of something that is way old, like 50 years old. And so I'm interested in ideas that the team might come up with to keep those trees and continue with the sidewalk. Also, having said that, I'm also would really welcome the opportunity for members of our neighborhood, at least, to be able to sit down and have real life conversation with some of the planners. This is wonderful, what's happening right now, but there's nothing like a conversation with people in a room. And so I'm wondering if that is not something that could be folded into this next planning session. Those are my big concerns, is the existing landscape and also the ability to have input in something more than by email or on Zoom.
Anna, if I may, I will go ahead and take that. We had to have something for the community to react to. So that's why we're here at this 30%. It certainly doesn't preclude us from having community meetings, and we would welcome the opportunity to appear at a community meeting in the future, particularly if we could get multiple of the associations together to have a meeting at an accessible location. So thank you for that comment as well. Next, I'd like to call on Max. And Max, I'm unmuting you here. And you may go ahead, please.
The presentation. I live on 18th Street in Colter, right off of phase 6. I want to first say I echo a lot of Ellen's concerns that she raised earlier about being a residential neighborhood and the concerns with the traffic circle, especially sidewalks. I also want to say the street is very dark, so I would like to see that when you do your reevaluation, if you can consider adding some additional street lights. I think for safety that'd be helpful, even if it's not in the bike path. Then lastly, I'm confused at why it stops at 20th Street and doesn't continue all the way towards 24th Street. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Max.
Max, I can take the first portion of your question. We are planning on designing the streetlight portion that's will be at 60%. That's included in this project. We haven't gotten to that that part yet, but streetlights are will be installed or designed to be installed a part of the plan.
Thank you. Next, I'm unmuting Mike. I have a couple of Mikes and Michaels on here. So Mike, who just signed in as Mike, please go ahead. If your question's been asked and answered, let us know.
This is Mike. Sorry for not adding my surname at the end. My name is Mike Ferret. I'm the president of the Windsor Square Historic District Association, and so that's the area between 7th Street and Central Avenue. And first of all, we appreciate you walking through these plans, and it's nice to know that the city continues to place fostering community engagement and input, place such a high premium on that. As you've already heard, we have some reservations. I appreciate what you said, Jeff. I'm not exactly sure how you're going to retain palm trees that are sitting up against the curbing, but we look forward to hopefully having some creative solutions for that. And I think that's kind of the crux of my question is back to what you'd said, Heather, the steps that will be taken between tonight and let's say the completion of the 60% set in April. Can you tell us, Heather, a little bit about how you see those evolving? Because I think our fear as an association in our community as a whole is kind of having the train leave the station, if you will, and not having been able to, as Annalise said, being able to sit down and express thoughts and hear the potential solutions in maybe what would be a more intimate and let's say effective setting.
Thank you, Mike. I'm probably not the best person to address this, but I will jump in and say the project survey will give the project team a lot of really good input. That survey is going to be open until December 29th. So we'll be able to take your input from tonight and the chat and the Q&A and really study that and then take those next steps. Ruben, project team, take it from there, please.
Yeah, thanks for your concern. I think with a project like this, definitely we're going to be impacting certain things in the right of way. And practically, there are two options. You either meander the sidewalk across around the tree, or you move the tree and try and replace it. And in general, the project will go from 60% to 30%. The designer will take all your concerns to come up with a 60% plan. And then we'll share that with you. And before we go from 60 to 90, we'll together, work through all those challenges.
I appreciate that, Ruben. I guess it's kind of TBD then exactly what that again, subsequent to the closing of the survey and in advance of say the 60%. Again, the city is typically quite available. I guess again, just speaking for Windsor Square, some level of kind of formality to it to be able to articulate their concerns. And obviously there are a lot of people and a lot of concerns. You're stretching this across 30 blocks or more. So we look forward to having those conversations. How about that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now I'd like to take one of the submitted questions, and this will probably be of relevance to a number of the people who are here. Will homeowners lose property to sidewalks?
So most of the okay, Jeff. Well, most of the currently, as I've seen the plans, most of the infrastructure proposed are within the city's existing right of way, and we plan to stay in the right of way as much as possible. I think there might be a few locations here or there that might need right of way, but I think it's minimal. We just take just enough to put the sidewalk in there, and I'm not sure if Rod you have specific locations right now that might need right-of-way take, but most of the locations would not require new right-of-way.
This Rod. So yeah, you are correct, Ruben. The sidewalk improvements are being proposed inside the 60-foot right-of-way, which is the city right-of-way along Colter Street. Right now we've got, we're at 30% plans, and 99% of the improvements are planned to be inside the existing right-of-way. There's a couple slivers here or there, and depending on how the design fleshes out as we move into the next stage, whether or not we impact any right-of-way as far as improvements outside the 60-foot area. So right now, it's pretty much everything is inside the city right-of-way that we're proposing. Yes, that's correct.
But Rod, to go one step further, this is Bruce Littleton in that regard. An example, if you are trying to save a palm tree and you're building a sidewalk around, you may need a sidewalk easement in the very vicinity in order to not move the palm tree, as an example. So that's the discussion that has to be had with, with the neighborhood.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm scanning some of the questions here while I look for Sean G. Let's see, Sean G. And then after that, I'd like to check in with Albert Granillo to see if there are any people on the Spanish language line with questions. Sean G., you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Chat that I think have kind of been addressed around vegetation and trees, and if there's going to be any new trees. But my primary question is specifically at the intersection of Colter and 2nd Street. It's quite a large intersection there. I didn't see that one addressed. It's quite a bit of traffic flows through there at a high speed. I'm wondering what you're going to do to diffuse traffic. Is there a mini traffic circle going in at 2nd Street and Colter?
Not at this time. We can look into that and monitor speeds accordingly, but no, there is no planned traffic circles or traffic calming proposed at 2nd Street and Colter at this time.
It could be dangerous if there isn't something done about that. The other question I have is, how do you determine to put sidewalks on north and south versus just north or south? Because you have it different in different segments.
I'm sorry, can you state that again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
In some segments, particularly from Central to 7th Street, you're going to have sidewalks. You're proposing sidewalks on both north and south. In other segments, you're just having a sidewalk on the south side or the north side. How do you determine that you need to have sidewalks on both sides in some sections and only one side in other sections?
Some of that planning is just to minimize the impact. And so we take in consideration the existing conditions and the traffic within that area. So yeah, and again, it's still under design. So your input is essential. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of people have put in the chat, and I normally don't take this out of order, but a couple of people have asked, there was a question about why this project doesn't go out to 24th Street. And I believe the answer for that is because it ties into an existing bike route that's proposed or completed on 20th Street. But I'd like to have the project team answer that question. Certainly, we always say in these meetings that projects can be extended in the future, but you've got to have a beginning and an end to the project. So if somebody from the team could address that, please.
Yes, definitely. Our projects have a beginning and an end, and if we do it as money comes along, even not both segments of this project have fully been funded yet. So is there a future for a bicycle or this kind of infrastructure going east? Yes, there could be, but ultimately we're providing connectivity to existing network, and that's going to be the primary focus until we reevaluate and move forward with other projects.
Thank you, Ruben. I'd next like to call on Catherine B. Let me just find you here. Catherine, you're unmuted. Please go ahead. Let's see. Catherine, you're unmuted. I'm not hearing you though. Kathy B. Okay, maybe her audio isn't working. So let me go on to Rob R. I did see you on here. Scrolling down, Rob R. You're unmuted. Please go ahead, please. Rob?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I live between 3rd Avenue and Central Avenue. I am an avid bicyclist, so this project is certainly interesting to me. I used to commute into downtown Phoenix from my home. But I want to address something that most of you have already mentioned in your presentation, and that is safety and comfort. Now, the biggest problem we have on this short and narrow stretch of Colter is speeding drivers, largely coming from the Upward Projects restaurants at the corner of Central and Colter. And unfortunately, a lot of those drivers, well, most of them are speeding. A lot of them, I believe, are impaired to some degree. And at least when I walk the dog down the street, probably at least a third to a half of them are talking on their mobile phones while they're driving at relatively high rates of speed down our street. My concern is that your ribbon curb and sidewalk that's flush with the south side of the street and the removal of substantial amounts of landscaping, trees and bushes along the south side, many of which will be mine, will appear to drivers to be an effective widening of the street and only exacerbate the speeding problem on our block. And again, as a bicyclist, I have to say, this would really reduce my feeling of safety and comfort on that stretch. And noting that, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, NPR had a vignette about how widening streets actually creates hazards to pedestrians and bicyclists. I'd also say that the removal of vegetation and the widening of the street will have a pretty severe impact on the historic character of my neighborhood, Medlock Place, which is a very unique neighborhood and Phoenix's first suburb, platted in 1917. I have a further concern. I don't understand. Well, you've said in your presentation that parking will be preserved on our street. I don't quite understand how that will work with the sidewalk that is flush to the street. And I would say that any removal of parking will again make the street appear to be wider, encourage speeding, and it will also encourage the neighbors to widen their driveways, which will further derogate from the historic character of my neighborhood. I guess my question would simply be to ask the panel, please consider these situations when looking at this short segment, this block between 3rd Avenue and Central, because as a bicyclist, I think it's a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Albert, did we have any people on the Spanish language listen line with questions?
Heather, we do not.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to go to Gordon T. Gordon, you're unmuted.
It's not questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I don't have questions. I have comments.
Okay, I don't know what just happened. Okay. Gordon, you're unmuted again. If you have a brief comment, you can go ahead and make it now, or you can do that on the survey.
Just make a brief comment. First of all, before I make it, I would point out my perspective on this is, well, for the last 35 years on a regular basis, I've ridden from 3rd Avenue to 17th Avenue westbound on Colter to go to the Y there. So I've probably ridden on that portion of this street more than anybody. In general, I would say that, and the questions I think that we've had here indicate the failure of what this process has been so far. I say that because almost all these questions have been about, not about the bike end of it, which is what I thought this was, but rather about other matters, sidewalks, trees, whatever, nothing to do about biking, except for the last comment there. What I think you should do is, and I would ask you to consider this, the way I would look at construction of bike infrastructure would be, number 1, safety, number 2, safety first, and 3, now. By all that, what I mean is this: you should look at this project from what is the most dangerous points on this corridor right now, address those, and then see what happens later. What it would be is put the hawk light at 7th Avenue, the hawk light at 7th Street, and see what happens. But when you have all this other sidewalks and whatever, it adds cost, it adds delay. Put those two things in, those 2 hawk lights, see what happens. That's what I would ask you to do.
Thank you, Gordon. Next, I'd like to ask one of the submitted questions. It's about a ribbon curb. What is the ribbon curb and exactly where is it going to be placed? And follow-up question to that is, do sharrows preclude on-street parking? Team?
I can take that question. So the ribbon curb, it's like a 2 feet structural concrete that will, protect the existing pavement from any deterioration, and in the same time, it's like just in the same level of the pavement. Then that will go between 3rd Avenue to Central. There's going to be a sidewalk just at the south side of the Colter Street and going to be adjacent to the ribbon curb as well. The reason is to have like adjacent sidewalk without vertical curb is to keep the existing drainage condition that we have along the strip of the corridor. As far if we're gonna add a vertical curve, there might be a huge impact on the drainage condition that the existing street is, acting right now. So this is the ribbon curb definition and the section that we're gonna add.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to call on Regina M. Regina, I'm unmuting you now. Please go ahead, Regina.
Concerns is Ellen's, and I would also second Gordon's comments about this primarily being a biking project. And one question I have is the cost of the construction. Do we know an estimate for the phase 6 or section 6 project specifically? And as a taxpayer, I guess my comment is that it just feels like an unnecessary use of funds, considering the stretch that is from 18th Street to 20th Street is in use currently by pedestrians, by bikes. It's a quiet neighborhood, and I'm wondering if that money might be better reinvested in other city priorities, like primarily homelessness, and whether those funds have been allocated or if they yet to be allocated for the Section 6 construction phase.
Thank you, Regina. Who'd like to take the budget question? Because our funding comes from a variety of different sources. But also we're at the point now where we don't yet know quite what we're building. So would somebody like to take that question?
Heather, this is Bruce. Just to point out what was said. Phase 2 is not funded. So at this point, until it's designed so everything, what was it, west of 7th Street? I'm sorry, east of 7th Street is not funded.
To add on to that too, I'm sorry, to add on to that too, the funding for this project are for federal transportation funds. So this is transportation monies, and so that's where the funding is coming from. So either way, it would be allocated for this type of project.
Thank you. Next, I would like to find Belinda P. Belinda, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm a resident of Windsor Square on Colter Street. I've been here more than 30 years. And it may be an unpopular position, but I am adamantly opposed to the Colter Street pedestrian bike improvement project. Number one, this proposal would serve to open our historic neighborhood to additional traffic. This is something, it's well known, we've been consistently fighting for decades to mitigate. Why on God's green earth would we welcome a proposal to institutionalize something we've been trying so long to eliminate? The proposal would destroy over 5 feet of mature, carefully landscaped, well-maintained front yardage down the entire street on both sides of Windsor Square, replacing it with ribbons of heat-retaining concrete. Number three, the additional traffic, whether vehicular, pedestrian, or two-wheeled, greatly increases the potential for crimes of opportunity, reducing our neighborhood's peace and security. I may be speaking just for myself, but I'm going to use the we and say that we on Colter Street love the character of the Windsor Square historic neighborhood as it is. We don't want it to be forever altered by someone else's idea of quote unquote improvement. If this bike walk thoroughfare is indeed of such vital importance to the members of the City Council, imagine for just a moment if this project would be transplanted in its entirety to the streets they reside on. I don't think for 1 second they would welcome such an intrusion and disruption to the peaceful enjoyment of their own homes. So why should we on Colter Street be asked to endure what they would not? That's what I have to say.
Heather, you're muted if you're trying to say something.
I'm looking for Dawn. Dawn, you're unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Can you?
We can hear you.
Thank you. I also live in Square, Section 3. Thank you very much for the information you're providing this evening and the opportunity to speak. Many of my questions have been answered, but I did want to express a couple of concerns and also ask a question that has not been asked yet. I am concerned about the character of the neighborhood being affected by what is being proposed. I understand the desire to have this connectivity. I would request that at the very minimum, you consider the possibility of just using a sidewalk on one side of the street rather than both north and south. It seems unnecessary to have a sidewalk on both sides for purposes of connectivity, and having a sidewalk on both sides just adds to many of the things that we've been identifying as concerns. So that's one request I wanted to make. I also appreciated Mike Mike Ferret, the president of our board, asking for a meeting, and I would very much encourage that we have that meeting for our particular community to express specific concerns and figure out how to address them. The question that I have that hasn't been asked yet is how exactly does the city intend to reset the berms and the fences and the trees? Is the idea that the city is going to come in and actually do the work itself with specific discussions with the homeowner and approval? Because I have a berm that's absolutely affected. Or is it that the residents are going to be given instructions, they do the work and they submit invoices? How exactly would that be handled? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Team.
Thank you. So just to mention, as Jeff and Rod mentioned before, that the goal of this project, as one of the goals, is to minimize the impact on the existing condition. That's why we do have like different sections based on the survey and the information that the team collected during the survey and the engineering process to develop the 30% design plans. However, moving forward, there are going to be more details and more analysis and assessing the site to minimize the impact if there is like we're going to say like a major impact, as you mentioned, on the landscaping or existing fences. The goal is to address each case by case. The team going to be very close to the public on those situations to address multiple alternatives. And as Bruce mentions earlier, that there might be some alternatives to avoid removal of historic trees or any other features, existing features, and to determine how much would be the impact, if there is an impact, and what the cost will be encountered on that impact. The city will try to replace in kind as much as the project can with the with the available cost, but the general goal is to avoid the impact. But in case there is, like, for example, there is a fence that affects the site of the traffic movement or the pedestrian safety, that would be like included to be relocated as a part of the project.
So regarding the construction aspect of it, typically with all our projects, we have, we'll discuss with you during the design process of what needs to be done, and the contractor that we hire would be responsible for relocating the berm if we have to, yes.
Team, we are at 7:15. I think you've heard a lot of questions. I know we will get many more that are submitted online. I'm just going to take a quick glance through and make sure that I've called on all the people that pre-signed up to speak, and let you know. One of the questions that we often get is regarding policing. And that is not under, and I see a couple of questions about that. That's not under the authority of the Street Transportation Department, but we do work closely with Phoenix PD regarding police issues and speeding issues, but hopefully some of the speed mitigation that's planned as part of this would be welcome and help with that. Let's see. There's one other person here I'm looking for, Nick. Nick M. And then that'll be our last question for tonight.
Hi, can you hear me?
Please go ahead. We can.
Thanks. I live on Colter and 12th Street, and I frequently use Colter for running and bicycling, so I really appreciate kind of the aims of the project, especially the multi-use path on the other side of the 51. I think that'll be very helpful. I wanted to understand the difference between the Hawk crossing and the Toucan crossing. It sounds like the Hawk is a little bit more involved and probably is more expensive, but I wanted to understand what the difference between the Hawk and the Toucan is.
Bruce, you're up.
Yep, I figured that would be me to answer that. They're basic, cost-wise, they're almost identical. It's how they operate and what gets shown to the driver and what gets shown to the pedestrian. At a Hawk, you have the solid red followed by the flashing red, and the pedestrian gets a walk, don't walk indication. At a Toucan, the traffic signal is a red, yellow, green, like it would. So to the vehicular movements, it would look like a normal traffic signal. But the pedestrians come to the middle of the road and cross the right turn lanes that serve in and out of that, and cross in the middle with the standard walk, don't walk.
Okay.
So the two intersections pretty much operate the same, although they're a little bit different in how it gets shown to the driver and how, from a cost perspective, they're virtually the same.
Okay, yeah, because I think the 7th Street is quite a busy street, and I think cars go very fast. So I think, yeah, I'd just be interested in how that gets implemented. But yeah.
Thank you, Nick. And I do want to apologize to the people who signed up to speak. We had people sign up as far back as 2 weeks ago when we opened registration for this. And when I started the meeting, I said we had 43 people signed up to speak. We got through a lot of those today, but I will tell you our project teams are very diligent about getting back to people. The survey on the project website, which I put in the chat, the survey does have open-ended questions, an opportunity for you to submit, as well as an opportunity for you to weigh in on the different kinds of speed mitigation or safety devices, and also particular areas of concern. So we do appreciate your time today. We appreciate your engagement. An engaged community is the best kind of community to work with, to make sure that we design something that works for the community that we're affecting. We appreciate your input. I know the project team has a lot to go back to, and I'd just like to offer the project team a chance, if they wish to make any closing remarks, or our director, Joe Brown, and then we will post the recording of this meeting in the next couple of days.
Heather, this is Bruce. Before you do that, one of the questions in the chat was, how do you get to the website? They couldn't get to the survey. So can you say again how they can get to the survey, and is it available right now immediately, or will be available as of tomorrow?
The survey was loaded up during the meeting. I'll put that website back in the chat again. It should be there. People may need to refresh the website if they haven't reloaded it since the survey was added. But you should see that website link in the chat now, and I'll read it out to everyone. It's Phoenix.gov /streets/Colter Street PED, PED, bike, BIKE. So Colter Street PED bike after Phoenix.gov /streets and a /. And again, I thank everybody. Joe, did you have any closing remarks to offer?
Heather, just thank the team again, and I appreciate everybody's input. We're going to take it back. That's what we do, and get back to you if we haven't already answered your questions, and look at some of the issues you raised. I'm a cyclist, so I can appreciate some of those comments, not just about the pedestrians, but about the cyclists. And thanks again to the team. Nice job.